What's the difference between a hotel restaurant that drives revenue and one that quietly drains it? On this episode of Check-In with Bryan, I'm sitting down with Guy Reinbold, former VP of Food and Beverage and Corporate Executive Chef at Marriott International and the founder of Guy Knows F&B, where he is now taking his vast experience and skills to even more players within the industry. 40 plus years on the front lines of hotel operations, and now he's taking that experience directly to owners and operators who need real answers. We're getting into all of it: concept development, menu strategy, the real tension between brand standards and owner profitability, and why most hotel restaurant concepts fail before they ever open the doors. If you own hotels, operate them, or just want to understand what actually moves the needle in F&B, this one's for you. This episode of Check-In with Bryan is brought to you by Reliance Hospitality. Hospitality consulting, project management, and business process outsourcing, built exclusively for the owner's side of the table. PIPs, renovations, budgets, brand compliance, we manage it all so you don't have to. Learn more at reliancehospitality.com. Welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of Check-In with Bryan. I'm your host, Bryan Fish, and this week we're going to talk about food and beverage, which everybody loves food and beverage. They love to have food. They love to have a beverage. But sometimes it's a pain in the ass at the hotel. And especially if you're a hotel operator or an owner, it doesn't always work the way that you want it to work. You're not making the money you want to work, or you're not making the money you want to make. And, well, fuck, you're just going to have to edit that again. Yeah. I'm going to keep going. We'll put it together. But at the end of the day, it's great when you have a brand partner that understands it's not their money and you actually have to do something that the guests enjoy and that you'll have success with. And I've got that guy for us today. Guy Reinbold, I met, back, it's been probably at least 6 or 7 years ago. It was pre-COVID, but he's an amazing person. He was a legendary figure when I was at a hotel that was a Starwood brand. The merger had occurred with Marriott, and all I heard was about Guy. Everywhere I went, it was, you got to talk to this guy, Guy. He can help you with all your food and beverage issues. And he was just this legendary figure that one day I reached out to somebody and said, hey, I need help at this specific hotel. And they were like, and I said, can I get a hold of Guy? And I got connected with Guy, and I fell in love with this man from the first phone call. Culinary Institute of America trained, and 40 years with Marriott International. Now he's started his own agency. He's consulting with clients just like we do, but from a food and beverage perspective, and he's excellent. So this is going to be one you will love, especially. And I know that Guy's got a ton of fans out there, so be sure to give him some love as well. So we'll be right back as I sit down and check in with Guy Reinbold. Welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of Check-In with Bryan. I'm your host, Bryan Fish. And today I have someone that, if you've been around, you've probably either heard of the guy, because when I was managing hotels, I was hearing of this legend person during the Starwood Marriott merger, that there was this man that worked in food and beverage called Guy that would be amazing to talk to. And it took a couple of years before I met him, but I did meet him. But if you haven't heard of him, you've at least met him. So I feel like there's probably nobody in a third bucket out there. His name is Guy Reinbold. He had over 40 years of experience leading hotel food and beverage operations with Marriott International as VP of Food and Beverage and Corporate Executive Chef. He attended the Culinary Institute of America back in 1974. I think the 70s were a great period. I can only imagine the fun you had at CIA back in 1974. But this man's the real deal. He understands it not just from the franchise perspective, but he also understands it from the brand managed perspective, as well as he's the guy that you want in the room because he's also looking out for the owner and the investors at the same time. He understands that just because it's pretty doesn't mean it's going to make money. And I love this guy. Every time there's a food and beverage situation, I give his number out. Hopefully people are calling him. And I've been wanting him on the podcast for a while, and we finally were able to make it happen. Guy Reinbold, welcome to the Check-In, and thank you so much for taking time to sit down with me today. This is amazing.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the nice introduction. I don't know if I can.
Well, you really are. It's so funny. You really are, like, I think, especially with in the Marriott world, you were like this legendary figure, because
I'll remember I was at the first conference that Marriott did after the Starwood merger. I was saying like we were having issues with food and beverage in certain areas, and they're like, "Oh, there's this man named Guy Reinbold," and like I remember the first few people knew who you were, but they didn't exactly know how to get a hold of you or like what your actual role was. But they had heard from somebody else that you were like the man that could like create, like fix whatever the problem was.
Well, that's a good thing you do in a corporate office. You can don't let people know exactly what you do and where you're at.
So, and I remember we got connected because we had a full service Sheraton that I was just like, I want to say, rolling back in my head, I believe I had an executive chef at the time or right before that had put a hot dog on the menu. And that was like, I had just had it. And like, nobody would listen to me. I was like, the guests don't like the food. And I cannot believe you just brought me a hot dog with ground beef on top of it and I'm thinking, this is a Sheraton. Why did you bring me this hot dog? And I ended up reaching out to Richard Vayu and saying, like, can you get a hold of this Guy person that everyone talks about? Like, are we able to, because I didn't understand that you actually had moved into the franchise world. You were working with the franchise operators and you came out to Phoenix and spent a couple days with us. And I felt good because you had validated a lot of things I had said, which was like, we need to go like be doing what people are expecting to come here for, to eat. Like we should have chips and salsa. Like, let's get some tequila. Let's do all these things. We implemented a lot of them, but I did get some pushback from some other individuals. Unfortunately, I wasn't the CEO of the company at the time. So today I would just be like, this is what we're doing, guys. It changed the dynamic, but it told me, Bryan, you're not an idiot. You understand, like the consumer is right at the end of the day. Like whatever's going to sell is going to sell. But no, I think you're what is it they say? Your reputation precedes you, sir.
That's kind of, that as we've spoken and we spoke then, I mean, guests go somewhere to try something.
Right.
And it's our job
like
to
you
be
don't
host,
go to Switzerland and not go seek out chocolate, right? I'm assuming like, yeah. I think the only thing you, as a traveler, when you go out there, and it's funny, it's a trend, I feel like, is you go check out the local McDonald's. But again, why do you go check out the local McDonald's? You're going because if you're in another country, they have an item that's specific to that market and you want to try it because you can't get it at home at McDonald's.
I did that in Prague. We had a restaurant, we had a hotel we did in Prague, and it was the same thing. I went over there. But, so it's fun. Yeah.
But 40 years at Marriott International, we said before we got started, you cracked a joke, which you also are funny, which I love, is you're like, there is life after Marriott, and I think Marriott's one of the few gems out there where there are people that have been there for 35, 40 years. And I think it is scary for some of them. I've met some people over the last couple of years that have left and they either have done really well or some have, they still miss the good old days. But, a matter of circumstances, you ended up being able to exit kind of on your timeline, potentially because of the pandemic. Everybody found themselves during the pandemic, and then you immediately went out on your own, and now you're doing your own thing. You're working with consulting with other companies, and I mean, I love seeing what you post online just because it seems like you're having fun right now. But I'm sure you had fun in 40 years at Marriott as well.
I've been so lucky. You mentioned earlier graduating culinary institute in 1974, and I was a tech school kid and ended up going to college. And I will tell you this has been the greatest run of my life. It's just spectacular. I mean, meeting people, working with hotels, being a partner, understanding the business model. I mean, it's just do the right thing, and it takes care of you, giving back. I mean, all the cliche things you hear people say, I'm doing right now. I'm involved with a local community college, and I was talking to my wife, and we're trying to get these kids in an internship program, blah, 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 and it just didn't work out. The owner didn't want to pay for them. And my wife said to me, why don't you start your own scholarship? So I said, that's a great idea. So I started my own scholarship, and it's a local community college, and I pay for a student's education because someone did it for me when I was in high school. So it's a give back. It's a give back community, and you know what I mean. You and I haven't spoken in 5 years. We picked it up like we missed each other in 5 minutes, right? But this this community is that. It's a give back and working together on things. And, if you cheat it, they'll catch you.
Cheating never works out.
Right?
Cheating doesn't work out, and karma's a real thing. So, yeah.
Oh, bang.
No, but I also think it's, Tyler and I were talking about this on a drive from Palm Springs yesterday. It's a lot of people, there's a lot of us that sit on the front end of things, and we have had success in different areas, and you do different things and you're successful and you get a lot of recognition for the things that you do. But at the end of the day, like nothing happens by a singular person. Like somebody might have had an idea or whatever, but it's the team that's around you and it's the people you work with that make you successful.
It's also that constant stream of communication. I will also say your point is very solid. And the other thing is, specific to a hotel, generally something just doesn't happen. There's a communication lapse that caused that somewhere. And what people shouldn't do is sit there and blame and try to find out whose fault it was, but really just go back and say, you know what? We said we're going to have a BEO meeting or a banquet event order meeting every day at 2:00. And guess what? We chose not to do it that day. Yeah, look at where it happened, not who did it. Who cares, right? Tighten up your communication, tighten up your processes, and it's a great way to work.
But to your point, I think it's more dramatic and it's more interesting for people to go blame somebody or find somebody to blame when something goes wrong. When in fact, like it's
one finger out, three fingers.
I mean, the reality is,
three fingers pointing back at you.
There is, like you said, it's communication or the lack of at some point where like somebody dropped the ball, and it's like at the end of the day, the client or the customer doesn't really give a shit, right? Like they think it was you, like it was the hotel, it was
right.
Whatever the company is. Like, I mean, it's true across the board, no matter what business you're in, really. And like I'm more sensitive to it now, I think, just after having dealt with it for so long with employees. When I have a customer service experience, like at any other, like we won't use like the DMV as an example because they're usually all kind of crazy. But you go and a customer service person's trying to like give you the whole rundown of why it wasn't their fault. It's like, I'm not accusing you of personally like sabotaging me, and nor do I really care in most cases. But it's like, it's like human nature. They just got to blame somebody to make themselves feel better. Right. Hotels, and I think hotels are interesting just because they are in the industry as a whole is interesting because it's very tight knit. I think there's really not a lot of us out there at the end of the day that have done it as a career. But it's a place where so many people are able to launch very successful careers. And it's,
oh my goodness. Oh, absolutely. I there's some really good guys. There's a couple guys that candidly, I hired them as interns in Baltimore that are very successful with franchise management companies right now. Just giving opportunities and working through things. But you have to have confidence yourself to let people learn and not be afraid, there's nothing
they'll grow.
wrong.
And it's like, that's what I love about this industry is it's one of the few that are still left that you really can just, if you're willing to put the time and the work into, because of people like you and I and other people in our circles, they'll help you and they'll give you the opportunities, and you can make a life for yourself and have a good life. It's not a dead end job.
And I think one of the neat things about it is no one keeps score. You know what I mean? It's, I think that's one of the neatest things about it. I mean, my cousins had to go into a hospital, and she called me, I ended up reaching out to a buddy of mine. He took care of the rooms for him while they're in the hospital, but it's not like I owe that person. You know what I mean? Our industry is that way. You just, it's hospitality, for goodness sake. Right?
Yeah. I feel like in some cases, some brands have gotten away from understanding it's hospitality, but I feel like we're far enough away from like the tumultuous period of COVID that I'm starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel where people are bringing the hospitality back in. And with technology too, like with AI stuff, I was just at a conference earlier this year, and the big conversation was not about how we're going to replace people, but how we have this big database of all this information on these guests. how can we use AI to make these experiences better for these guests? And,
Well, that's so true what you just said. I mentioned to you earlier when we were chatting that I'm kind of in the throes right now of doing 3 different concepts in 3 of the different hotels. And, AI helped me do my job easier. It didn't replace me. I needed to know the questions. I needed to understand. What is the concept? You and I spoke about this all the time. What is the concept? If you don't have a concept, you're in trouble, right? And that's what you do. You say, all right, here's my concept. And one of them we're doing, I'm in Maryland right now. We're doing a Maryland Eastern Shore grill room. So, I need to know what are the pieces we need to do. Let's make sure. Let's do our checklist. Let's put this thing together.
Right.
I didn't feel threatened at all. I was like, holy cow, look how easy this makes. It's that. But I still have to know what questions I'm asking. 100%. Right? And I still need to know where I take
anything. It's good for brainstorming. And sometimes it is, you read it, what it's telling you, and you're like, yeah, that's never going to happen. And then there's other times you're like, oh, I didn't actually even think about that. But if you, again, you still have to be smart enough to know how to take the idea or move it. But it's a computer. It's only as smart as what people have taught it.
We did one of the hotels we're doing it. We said, we need to figure out the competitive pricing on our menu. We just, make sure we're there. And it takes about 9 minutes. Right? Bang. Here's the restaurant. Boom. Here's the pricing. Here's the items. And we had it. And we just want to make sure that, we're fairly priced. Right?
It's especially for like a quick check or getting a pulse check on what you're doing. It's great. And then you can then go buy, if you need to do a big serious thing, then go do a big serious study later. But it kind of gives you an idea. Do I even need to go down the road of the serious study? But, well, let's get into, I got a couple,
no, you're right.
I don't want to say Marriott specific questions, but again, you were there for 4 decades, sir. So you spent a lot of time there. There was a big, which I feel so wonderful about because it is my favorite beverage. Hit the news wire in the last 2 weeks that Marriott International, after I think it was like 38 years that they've had the contract, they have decided to terminate their agreement with PepsiCo and are going to be serving Coca-Cola products at all 5,000 plus hotels globally. I remember during the Starwood merger, because I came over from having hotels in the Starwood portfolio, that was the biggest thing we were upset about, was the fact that we had to switch to Pepsi. And I remember the guests like revolting too and being upset about it. But I don't think we ever lost business because of it, but people would always kind of complain. But Marriott guests knew that it was always going to be Pepsi. Did you ever think you were going to see Pepsi go away?
No, I think that one of the things that the brands do, and I think that sometimes from an operations point of view, you kind of feel that you're stifled, or not stifled, that you're treading, waiting to get going. But I will say, I think, Hilton does a great job with it. I think IHG, these guys, I think these brand guys really do a great job of asking the customer what they want, getting the information that they're really, like your comment about some of the blowback from Starwood when he came over. And I think that they really did take a look at luxury tier and how to, when you've got in any full service brand, or excuse me, any of the brands, you got a portfolio. So, where does it go across everywhere? And is it a big miss in a brand or in a segment that we need to address? And it's not just for Coke. I mean, we do it for everything. And I think that this understanding what the guest is looking for is no different than what we talked about earlier. Right. When you go to a hotel and you expect to have crab cakes in Maryland, right? When you do your homework and you figure out what the brand is looking for, and then you take a look and say, what can they do to help us? And I think one of the comments too is, and it's not a knock on PepsiCo by any means, it's how do we move forward in training and how do we bring more value in those regards? Because Zoom training and doing these things, it's real, and we need to keep working that. And the other area too that I think they come into play is a little bit with retail too. Retail is a huge space right now, as you know. I mean, it's just building that out. So I think that I think it was a very tough decision. I know it was a tough decision in the building. I mean, I know that Tony Capuano actually called the Pepsi folks and as the president and said,
Right.
it's a tough decision, but here's where we're going.
Yeah.
And, so, it's where it is. I mean, it's based, I think the most important thing is if it's data driven, then it's easier to swallow, I guess, for lack of a better term. Right.
Yeah. And Marriott's standing by the fact that they're saying, hey, guest preference data that they've been collecting and we know that they have a very large tranche of is indicating that, the preferences the guest wants Coke products. But, I think
well, I don't know if I'll get myself in trouble for saying this, but one of the questions we used to say all the time was, we asked the customers and they said they prefer this. And I'd always had the caveat from going from an owner's perspective, wear my owner's hat. I said, but then we asked them, would you pay $7 more for it? Right?
Yeah.
You want to give me it? Sure. $10 more, maybe not. And that's not regarding Pepsi's Coke, but sometimes the data we get, is it, but it's based on a real
put some
question,
dollars
right?
to it. It's like, well, maybe my preference will change. But I did find it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Would you pay $20 more for
But I did find it.
No. Okay.
It was interesting how something like, and I think it's true, like with brands like McDonald's too, that, have served Coca-Cola their entire existence. And, everybody knows like a Coke, like a regular Coke and like a Diet Coke at McDonald's just tastes a specific way and they know that taste. It was interesting to me that it was global news though. And it was like on all the major news networks, it was announced that Marriott was, going to be switching over to Coca-Cola, because I had been through some changes in the past with other brands and it was never like, there was never a press release. No one was doing interviews about it. And it's interesting to me to look at it from the perspective of it's so ingrained in the brand that it has to be addressed when at the end of the day, it's like people switch from Coke to Pepsi or Pepsi to Coke it happens every year. People forget. I think it's not just about the Coke, Diet Coke, Sprite, Sierra Mist, Pepsi, Diet Pepsi. It's these companies, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, they've got huge lists of products that they manufacture that they've developed that are not just those core beverages. So it's really, it could end up at the end of the day, not even be a matter of actually Coke. It could be a completely different product that we don't even know about.
Yeah, I mean, in PepsiCo's, they got the Quaker line, the Gatorade line. I mean, they got that product line, and it is. I mean, retail is huge, and not just in that area. I mean, the alcohol piece. We're in our hotels, we're adding alcohol into all of our retail space. The small bottles or the canned cocktails, stuff like that, which are.
It's amazing how those canned cocktails will sell. And people buy it. People pay it for them too. Like they won't spare a penny.
Yeah. I think you have to, I think one of the things, you talk to some folks about this all the time, and in the retail space, you just have to be real. You can't gouge. You just can't gouge. That's the thing, right? You get a fair price and understanding me traveling the road. I realize it's convenience, but absolutely.
But I think people don't. In their minds, they're like, well, it's in the hotel, so I can charge more for it. But the reality is and that may have been true, I think, at some point in time when you could do that because people didn't have options. But now that you do have DoorDash and Uber Eats, which is interesting because, one of the things that I wanted to make sure I talked to you about today was I had an experience at a hotel this week I had several experiences at this hotel, Guy. I had stayed at this hotel 9 or 10 years ago when it was part of the Tribute portfolio with Starwood. And I was there for training, and I will never forget that there was no hot water most of the days. I know this. I remember this because this time I'm back, almost a decade later, is now with another franchise system. There was no freaking hot water again. And they're getting ready to do another multi-million-dollar renovation. I'm like, I was joking with Tyler, so I kind of want to call them and tell them, can you fix the hot water during this next renovation? Crazy.
I'll tell you a quick story about that, and I won't mention who, when, or where. But I was at a hotel, and we're doing the renovation, and again, the team wanted to do the painting and the lipstick and making it really look good. And the meeting planner said, but your roof's leaking in the atrium. Right. And the guy said, well, he goes, well, you can't brag about that. He goes, well, you should have hot water. You should have a roof that doesn't leak. I mean,
there's no sizzle to that. It doesn't speak to anybody, right? But it's so funny. People do that all the time too. It's like, people just expect a roof that's not going to leak. Like that's like when you're buying a hotel, especially, that always comes up. But this place,
absolutely,
and it's a big property. It's a well-known property. We're not going to put them on blast because I really do love the people there. But I call down to order in-room dining because still, I mean, I think I'm in the generation where like in-room dining is not supposed to be specifically targeted like for me, but like that's, to me, if there's no in-room dining available, it's almost like camping. It's just a thing. I think it's like, I need it. I call down. The man's very nice.
Yeah, sure.
His name was Bryan too. So he was very excited when he checked me in. But I called the restaurant number to order it. It rings and rings. It rolls to the front desk. And he's at first like, well, I don't know. Let me find out. Well, okay. Well, it says here I'm supposed to call this extension to place my in-room dining order. And he comes back on the line and says, unfortunately, we don't have in-room dining today. You'll have to come down to the restaurant because they won't answer the phone either because, they're short-staffed or whatever. And you'll have to place the order with the host stander at the bar, and then they'll give it to you to go. Well, the reality was I had to think about it. And this property, and it's in Palm Springs. So it's like, it's very spread out. It's a resort. And I'm at a building that's towards the back. Well, here's the thing. I had to make a decision. I was like, well, it's actually closer to walk to my car and just go someplace than it is for me to walk to the lobby. So I ended up just getting in the car. And this is a crazy thing. I didn't even go anywhere fancy. I ended up at a Del Taco. I ended up at a freaking Del Taco because I was like, oh, that sounds good. But I was like, why are we offering something that we can't execute on? And I think that to me, it was a missed opportunity because then I'm thinking, well, how many guests did what I did, or they just ordered something on DoorDash or Uber Eats or something. And, and I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is, the advent of DoorDash and all these apps and everything that came out. Like, how have you seen that affect the hotels over the last couple of years? And
well, I think your story encapsulates it's the reality. I mean, I had an old boss years and years ago. He's from Italy, and he told me, he goes, Guy, he said, the Americans are the most polite customers in the world. In Italy, if there's not a good experience, they scream and they yell and they just go crazy about it. He goes, but you Americans are very nice. You're very polite. You just get up, you walk away, and you never come back. and it is. I mean, and a couple other things, Brian, it too. I mean, you've seen it. You talk against it and fight for it. Mm-hmm. But even the pricing on room service, when we start, when it's going to cost you $135 for a bottle of champagne, or just some of the ridiculousness of it. And it's just like, it's supposed to, I get it. It's an upcharge because you're bringing up my room. And I understand that there's that piece of it. But my goodness, you just can't.
Right.
You just can't keep just taking advantage of it. And I think that's what a lot of people have done. What you said is exactly that. I'm going to pay overpriced for a burger. And like you said, I want is a simple burger, Caesar salad. You know it as well as I do. The burger, Caesar salad, grilled salmon, and a steak are like the number, chicken Caesar.
Yeah. And I actually love hotels where that's the no dining menu. Is, right? I'm like, you know what? This hotel just gets it. They're not even going to offer anything else.
We're not going to put a $73 rack of lamb with,
The only hotel that doesn't, that's slightly different, I think, and I'll give a shout out, I think it's Columbia Sussex that manages the hotel, is the Hilton O'Hare. I will tell you, it's the funniest thing. Yeah. I love a good chicken. I am a chicken whore. Like, I love chicken. The roasted chicken at the Hilton O'Hare that's on the room service menu, fantastic. Okay.
I'll let Henry know. Henry Machad is the VP of Food and Beverage. He's a great friend, really good guy. But you know what? They do a very good job. They create a core menu. They let the hotels be creative in their market, but the core is that, and then Core Plus, right?
Yeah.
So That's so, that helps without
Right.
strangling creativity.
I think that's the big thing
guidance.
is you can't let, and you had said this to me a long time ago when we were working on that project in Phoenix. It's, use the talent you got here. Like the people that are here know how to make these things, and, better than anybody that can write you can write a recipe from the corporate office on the East Coast, but, especially like salsa and things like Southwest food, the people in the Southwest know how to make it better. And, it's funny. It makes me think of a story. I was at a hotel last April in Mexico, beautiful resort down in Tulum. And I was talking to the general manager, and he had been transferred down there from another resort in the States. And he was so frustrated because I was like, the food just wasn't what I was expecting. And I was talking to him and I said, I've loved everything. The only thing that's kind of odd, and I didn't even get it out of my mouth, Guy. He just said, he goes, let me guess, the food at the pool and the food at the bar. And I was like, I said, yeah. I said, I don't get it. I said, the tacos, like everything is just so like bland. And they had other restaurants on site and the food there was good, but they had like worked with the local company to like contract those concepts. And he goes, yeah, I'm having a fight right now with my supervisor back in the States because they keep demanding that like our salsa has to be made with this like specific recipe that they've given us, that was written off out of an office in the States and something else. And he's like, I keep trying to tell them it's like, he goes, I don't know how to say it the politically correct way to be like the Mexican guy that is Mexican, that lives in Mexico knows how to make salsa.
Well, I'll give you an example of something like that you take advantage or you don't take advantage of. We opened, the Stofers in Baltimore 35 years ago. And we walk in and I was a chef and I was a young guy and I have all the answers and the general manager's there and he came up from Florida and the F&B director came in from Chicago and general manager looked at us and he said, listen, we're in Baltimore. I want you to find out who in that kitchen right now makes the best crab cake, and that's the crab cake. Because you're not from Baltimore. I'm not from Baltimore. Yeah. We have to have the best crab cake in Baltimore. And we went back and we looked at it and found some guys that could make them pretty good, and we never varied from it. And I made them for Bill Marriott. Bill Marriott goes, Guy, this is the best crab cake you've ever had. And I'm like, there you go. It's a Maryland crab cake, Mr. Marriott. But to your point, and people in your market, they know this stuff.
Well, that's the thing. I think if you involve them in it too, like it just makes them so much more proud of what they're making. And I find it internationally, the F&B teams like are, I would almost say they take even more pride in it than I would say regionally we do here in the United States. Because I think the States, like there's regional things people eat, but it's kind of the same across, like the majority of our food is the same. But I always find it fun when you go visit hotels in other countries and that they love to show off and like make things like that aren't on the menu for you. Like, and somebody I can't remember who told me this. Maybe it was you, maybe it was somebody else. At some point they had said when I started traveling more internationally, like just ask the restaurant server, like what if the chef can just make something for you. And I thought I didn't, and here in the States, like I just knew not to ever do something like that because it feels like you're being like, treating the menu as like a list of ingredients. But I learned like they actually like when you go to other countries, especially in like boutique hotels and stuff, those chefs they love making like a regional thing for you, like, and they can whip it up like in minutes. And it's like they have such pride in it. So like if you're, it works here too. Like your point, you're in Baltimore, you gotta like if you're gonna do the crab cake, you gotta do the crab cake well. You can't do it so. It's like,
absolutely.
Like if you're going to put queso on your menu in Texas, it's got to be the best, damn good queso out there. But, you really had a realistic view when you were at Marriott about how food and beverage had to be executed. And you understood that there were standards that had to be in place, and you understood that everybody had their place from the design and construction teams and the brand teams and everyone. But one thing I took away from you was that you really believed that at the end of the day that you understood that there was an owner's asset or an investor that was putting money into a property, and you understood the customer and that they just wanted to eat good food that was what they were expecting when they got there. You know, for 40 years with Marriott, I think a lot of people would expect that you would be like, you know, almost just a walking regurgitation of Marriott. And, you know, you're not that guy. You're not that guy. And I was just curious, like, how did that develop during your time at Marriott? Because obviously, I think is one of the reasons you were very successful and you're continuing to be successful.
It was a challenge. I mean, and I would say we as a company are very good at spending someone else's money. And I said, we owe it to that owner, that partner. If we want to do more deals, let's be realistic to them. If it makes sense, but you know, if a guy's only doing like $1 million, when I say only, it's still successful. I'm not knocking anybody, but you do $1 million of revenue in a restaurant, and the PIP comes in or the property improvement plan comes in, it's $2.5 million. I'm like, how will this person ever pencil this thing? Or, you know, we get in a situation where, you know, someone from the brand or the design team would come in and say, oh, let's move the bar over there. I'm like, do you realize the impact of moving a bar is probably $750,000 if, you know, all in, moving back and forth and stuff. I said, what does it really do for that owner? And are you going to be willing to stand there at the end and say, see, I was right doing this? And you have to. You just have to. It's not. I just really, really always believed that it's not my money. How do I make sure that if it was my money, what would I do with it? And I, you know, if anyone from the brand was saying, I said, well, explain to me why that's wrong to act that way towards a customer, right? If it was my money, would I spend that? No. Now, if I had the ability and the upside, absolutely, but not just as a, you know, rote thing. And we used, I mean, we ended up getting, you know, variations for the great room. You remember some of some of those rooms, and you know, this size hotel could do this, and you see it. And I will say, it was fun. Now I don't know if my boss always was happy with me being there, always fighting with the guys, but it was fun. It was fun bringing a perspective from an owner's point of view.
That's how we grow, and that's how things get developed. You all got like if everybody in the room always agrees, you've already lost the game. Like you're not going to be successful. Yeah. Like it's.
Yeah, I sat down with one owner, and he said, "I want to sit next to you. I've heard some things about you," and I'm like, "Uh oh." And I had dinner, and he's kind of drilling me the whole night, and he goes, "Yeah, you're one of us."
No, and it's funny. And that's how I felt the first time I actually met you and spoke to you. Even the first time I talked to you on the phone when I had asked you to come out to visit me, and we had a conversation. I remember getting off the phone, and I was like, shit, this is like the real first person from the brand side I've spoken to. Like he gets it. Like he understands what the challenge is. And I appreciated that so much as an operator, because you knew what I was dealing with and what I was facing. And you're like, look, this is what they're going to tell you, and it works here and here, but this is why it doesn't work here. And, but it's true though. Like if you're not, because again, we've all been in these restaurants, in these hotels where they'll be beautiful, but they make no money. And it's like, why did you spend all this money? But I think it also goes, if you don't have a concept either, I think that's where the design a lot of times ends up running way crazy, because then they just don't even have anything to work off of.
That's, that is to me anything that I would, for a couple reasons. Number one, concept. What are you? And please don't say farm to table. Please, I mean, everyone, it's like, we get it. We all get fresh food. Okay. So but we got I'm doing a hotel right now in the mid Hudson Valley, and it is absolutely mid Hudson Valley focused. I mean, we're talking about mushrooms and different, but you want it to be that way, but you have to be able to describe it. I would challenge, and we would kid about this. I would say, what is your elevator speech? What are you telling a guest in the elevator? What's your restaurant? Right? And it's always, oh, it's nice. We got a hamburger. We got and then you're like, you can almost think the menu in the top of your head, right? You know what they're going to be ordering. You can order it from your room. But, if you come into Baltimore and say, we have the freshest seafood. As a matter of fact, the chef's got soft shell crabs that he just got from the airport today that we're selling. That's
100%.
That to me is selling, right? You've got to market. We used to do silly things like, we had in Baltimore, we had a rooftop. The pool was on an indoor pool on the roof. And I said, let's go upstairs. And we put a garden. We had tomatoes, we had vegetables, herbs, we had all kinds of stuff around there. And we would go water the garden at noontime. If you're a gardener, it's the worst time to water anything. But you know why it was the best time? Because there was people at the pool. So all of a sudden, a lady comes out. What are you doing? A guest comes, what are you doing? This and that. And I said, this is our basil. And then I would go downstairs and we'd have jars of basil, pesto made up. And I send a note up and I send it to her room and say, hey, it's nice talking to you at the pool. Here's some pesto. Come on down and buy an appetizer if you'd like to, but here's something from the hotel.
Right.
Experiences are what you want to remember, right? It's that. I mean, we used to put the recipe for our crab cake and our soup, our chowder on a bookmark. So it's just, 4 by 12, right? Yeah. And the bellman back in the day when everyone had bellman, one would keep it in his pocket. And they just say, hey, you can't go home without one of these. And you know what? You come back and it's a memory, but how much it's
you're giving them an experience. It's making
earlier,
them feel something, right? As opposed to just, thanks.
Even thinking about, we used to, we're big on keeping the kids happy because if the kids are happy, mom and dad will eat in the hotel. So we did a deal where we put a pizza on a Frisbee. We did a steak with a cowboy hat. We did a Baltimore Oriole batting helmet with a hot dog. We did a sailor cap for fish and chips. And guess what? The kids would want to eat. So guess what the parents are going to eat, right? So don't sell kids short because
it's so funny you say that kids thing because I remember, so my career started at a Holiday Inn. And so Holiday Inn has the Kids Eat Free program.
Yep.
It used to be more expansive than it is these days, but they used to have a lot more advertising about it. And like we had like big color, like all sorts of coloring books, and there were like activities and stuff. I didn't realize until I had left the Holiday Inn and went to another brand that how big of a difference that makes in the environment, like in the restaurant and everything. Because because the kids were happy. Yeah. And then on top of it, the parents were happy too, because they weren't paying for the kids, but because it was kid focused, it like made everybody, calm. I've worked with some awesome F&B people in the past, and, in preparing to talk to you today, I was thinking about a lot of them. And the ones that I thought that I know were most successful that I worked with before I was like at the corporate office, that when I was on property, were the ones that would actually like bring the front. Well, they would, like, I was director of front office manager. Like they would bring my team something at the end of the day and be like, hey, this is what we're pushing in the restaurant tonight. And so they would have everybody try it. Even like the phone operators would try it, because then it made it easier for us to drive traffic to the restaurant in the hotel if we had actually eaten it. And it just kind of built the team more. So it wasn't us against them and all of that. But it was. No,
the front desk agents is the beating they take anyway. Yeah. I mean, anything else, God bless them, right? I mean, the drill. But anything you can do to sort of build that camaraderie between the teams and stuff like that, and just understand it. Again, it's hospitality, right? You take care. Right. As Bill Marriott says, you take care of the guests.
That's what it is. Like that's why we're in the hospitality business, is we're taking care of people. And I think it's funny. And then on top of it, I learned over the years that like the bartenders, that was kind of the trade was like, I could tell the bartender about a guest that's having an issue because I knew the guest was going to hit the bar. And then the bartender could help us on a guest recovery standpoint, like make their experience even better. But likewise, the bartenders would always keep us in the loop if they hear, because the guests are talking. And a lot of times it's funny how the guests will tell the bartenders about issues that are going on that they won't tell us about, but then we're able to then fix and take care of. And then, yeah. And I'll never forget, I had an employee once that was like, well, I'm upset because this, I fixed this issue for this person or for this guest. And, he like wrote a big review, but he was hell happy about the bartender. She got all the credit for doing it and she didn't do anything. She just told me. I said, well, but you got to look at it from his perspective. He doesn't know you did it, but he told her, and she, in his mind, she obviously took ownership of it. But then the technical part of this is then she went and had like talked to you about it because she couldn't fix the problem. The front office had to fix the issue. And like, you can't look at it that way. It's not an us against them thing. We're a team here. Like, we have to work together. And it's like, especially, I mean, absolutely. Word to everyone, your restaurant servers and your bartenders are potentially your hidden gems when it comes to your guest recovery and finding out if there's hidden things that are going on that you don't know about.
They are true ambassadors. They really are. I mean, they're a conduit between the guest experience. So it's like, and reality.
You can't treat them like they're just another amenity. It's like, pump them up. But, well, absolutely. We're almost out of time, but I do have a couple like more crazier questions for you because I thought about like I said, Tyler and I spent some time in the car as we do. And, we were talking about all sorts of things before today. And I thought, I bet Guy has some good stories because I've had my own fair share of experiences, but, what hotel, well, I don't need to name names, but you can describe it. Where have you had the worst hotel breakfast? Now, I think hotel breakfast to me has to be one of the easiest things to execute, but it can be done very well, but it can go off the rails. What's your worst hotel breakfast?
It was probably yesterday, candidly. Because it was a buffet with just crappy bacon, crappy sausage, scrambled eggs, and just that. Don't do it. Don't do it if you're, and you get there and you're like, are you kidding me? And you're like, and then, it was a brand, and but don't forget that's included. Yeah, I'd rather not be included then. And it was just such, and I just think that people, one of the things we're really trying to do in our properties is really figure out, and not just specific to breakfast. I think hotels would be wise to do this. Is some sort of a delighter. It's not a big deal. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, how many times have you seen, you're speaking of breakfast, 2 eggs over easy, and this is a little bit old time, with a piece of kale and a half of an orange twist, and that's the garnish. It's on your egg plate, right? I'm like, who eats it? But how about if you took a little cobbler, made a little warm apple cobbler, and you put that on the side of the plate with a little streusel on it, a little bit of powdered sugar on it. It's nice and warm, and you drop that down on the plate. Or, by the way, you sit down and have a cup of coffee for breakfast. Hey, by the way, the chef here's a little something for you to try. It's nothing. It's nothing. But, you mentioned breakfast, and I don't want to really go into the story too much with it too, but there's we used to have a lot of success with, I say a lot, a good amount of success. When a guest was charging their breakfast to the room, we would say, hey, Mr. Smith, do you have dinner reservations planned for tonight yet? You want us to make you one? And we would get, because you're not, some guys, I have a dinner, I have to go to something. Yeah, why don't I? You know what I mean? But I think breakfast isn't just slopping the eggs down. It's really an opportunity to showcase your hotel.
But I definitely, to your point, I've seen some bad ones. It's like, if you're going to do it right. And
you don't need to have 40 pounds. I'd tell you, Bill Marriott would just go crazy. If he went back and see like 40 pounds of eggs in a pan and bacon stacked up. And I'll never forget one time. And I will tell you, you talk about experience you get. That guy, what a pro he is, right? And I'll never forget, I was with him one time, and there's the bacon, the infamous bacon with 9 pounds of bacon in the chafing dish. And Mr. Marriott goes, what's that bacon? Why is it all there? And the chef thought he was clever. And he goes, well, I'm going to use it for the club sandwiches and other things and the burger and this and that. Mr. Marriott said, then just cook it fresh for the burgers and that.
Yeah. Like why make,
right?
Which is funny, like, because we've all seen it, right? You've all, like, everybody's gone in and like, you've seen it. They've literally cooked all the food for the entire day is in the chafing dishes. And, I never understood that, like why people thought that was the way to go. Cause it was like, and then on top of it, to that point, like, cook it fresh. Cause at the end of the day, like you can always tell when the bacon actually has been sitting for a long, like it's aged a little bit. And then I'm going to leave you with, you might not find this to be funny. I feel like this is funny. So we're going to talk about it because we need a food and beverage expert to answer this question for us here. So we started speaking about health inspections this week. And I made a comment. I was like, when I lived in Chicago, some of the best breakfasts actually that I've had would be at like the diner or something I would find. And the letter grade in the window would be like a C, maybe lower sometimes. So we got talking and, a lot of us, like, even my producer has been Tyler, he's worked food service. He gets it from that angle. And it's like, people freak out when the health inspector's coming. But then I got thinking about it, I'm like, it's funny, like you can eat, there's really good food sometimes at the places that just have like really bad food scores. And then we started talking. I have another colleague of mine that we're good friends now. We've known each other, I think, for like 20 years now. But we both worked at a hotel in Chicago together that actually, I'll just say the hotel, it was the Crowne Plaza Chicago Metro. And they have a restaurant. They had a restaurant there called Dine. I don't even know if it's still there anymore or if they've changed the concept. But we had a thing at this hotel that we called the Dine Effect, Guy. Now, our health inspections, we got an A+. The place is the place was very clean. But as an employee, you didn't eat the food because at least 10 minutes after you ate it, you were probably going to be like running through the hotel to the nearest restroom. But we also, and this is horrible of me as a front office person, but we would also watch guests experience this Dine Effect where like at least once a day, you would see somebody come flying out of that restaurant door. And it's like, I've been there, man. Like, I know. And so it got us talking about like, like the health inspections and the grades and stuff. So I guess it's a two-part question, or it's kind of one question or two questions in one. Like, why is it that some of the best places end up doing the worst with the health department? And then some of the places that do the best with the health department, if you eat the food, you're going to get the best colon cleansing of your life.
I was focused on it because I think the guys with the best food in the dirtier place are worried about how good the food tastes. And I think that the other guys are sitting there saying, what's the Board of Health saying? And not even paying attention to the kitchen. And I would tell you probably most of the hotel restaurants are in that one. And, that I used to tease your guys, our guys. I go back in the kitchen and say, hey, where's the salt and pepper? Just a simple statement on the line. And if the cook had to go climb up and get it, I go, well, then you're not seasoning or not tasting anything, but you got the cleanest kitchen in the world with the crappiest food. But I think it's now. Trust me, I'm certainly. Oh yeah. We have a lot of liability, a lot of things like that. So I'm certainly not downgrading the importance of it. But I think that more people that they can't cook. We've talked about this. I tell kids or students or anybody, when they're interviewing, if I call another chef up, it's a pardon my HR people, it's a 3-word question. Yeah. Can they cook? Period. Can they cook? I don't want to know. I don't care if they can do, spreadsheets. I'm hiring a cook. Can they cook? At
the basics, this is the job. Can they cook? Yeah. Which is a fair question. I think that's a fair question.
Right?
Like, you can be really smart on the computer, but if you can't cook, this is not the job for you.
Can they cook? Do they taste? And just, understanding, leaving stuff out, keeping stuff refrigerated.
So and I like that though. That's the one place you would expect. Like you need to make sure you can cook, just in my opinion. But Now, Guy, people have the chance to work with you now. Like if they are having issues in their hotel food and beverage operations, or they're building a hotel and they need to figure out what to do with their restaurant and what they're going to do with their F&B activations, you're available. Like you're available. How do people connect with you and get to work with you?
It's Guy knows F&B LLC, and I'll shoot you my wife and I, when I went to the bank, the guy said to me, he goes, "What's your company's name?" I said, "Guy knows F&B." And my wife goes, "I don't like that name." Yeah. I said, "Well,
it's your business.
My business." But it is. And it's pretty simple, and I can get you that information if there's anybody needs to know. Yeah. But it's reach out. I'm happy to do anything. I have a friend of mine is a banker, and he goes, "One of my customers is having trouble and this and that." And he goes, "Can you talk to him?" I said, "Sure." I try to be free for everybody, but maybe call me. I have a question. Hey, I have a question.
Yeah, you never know. And then maybe it's not this one that you get to work on, but some free advice sometimes ends up getting a bigger job down the road. So you never know. But awesome. Well, this was great. I'm glad we got to sit down. I could talk to you all day, but unfortunately, we both have to get back to our day jobs. But this was
absolutely. You're fun. Listen, I enjoyed when we worked together back at Properties, and I have nothing but respect for what you're doing and how you do things. You're a pro.
Yeah. At the end of the day,
you get it. You understand this business.
It's doing the right thing at the end of the day and just, not overcomplicating it. Well, thank you again, Guy, for joining me. This was amazing. Like I said, I'd been trying to get you on the podcast for a while, and I'm glad that we were able to sit down today, but we both have to get back to our day jobs. And, I know that our paths will cross again soon, and everyone be sure to reach out to Guy if you need any assistance, food and beverage wise. If you're an operator or owner, he's open to work with anybody. Even if you're a quick serve restaurant company, he's the man for you. So be sure to look him up online, and we'll also connect you as well. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Check In with Bryan.
Check In with Bryan is a production of RH Media Productions, executive produced by Tyler Alexander. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the positions of Reliance Hospitality Global Limited Co., its affiliates, or subsidiaries. All content is provided for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as professional, legal, financial, or investment advice. Always consult a qualified professional before making decisions regarding your business.